can't sleep at night. Have to hide my face. Go some other place.
Never find them mics. Hey there, how are we doing tonight? All right, you're visiting with me on TalkTalk tonight for about 55 minutes or so. I have a guest with me tonight, a friend of mine named Bernie. You better say it, I'll butcher it. Lubier. And tonight's show is going to take us away from hopefully all the political crap in New London, because I don't really think Bernie's into the political scene. But Bernie and I have done a little bit of music together. We're going to probably plan on doing some more and maybe eventually bring something to the show. He's a really fine guitarist, nice vocalist, and he's also kind of in this, he doesn't do the Access TV thing, but in a way, it's like he does radio, two different styles of radio.
I do.
So he does like what's the place in Hartford you do?
WTIC AM. It's they're the largest news station in Connecticut.
All right, I want you to move that mic up.
Move it up a little bit.
You talk soft.
Okay.
He doesn't do that when he sings, though, folks. So tonight, it's like I say, it's going to be different, and so we're just going to go with the flow. So you were saying about the station up in Hartford.
Yep, I've been doing news up there since middle of February. Just doing it part-time. I'd been out of the business, the radio business, for about close to 42 years. And now that I'm retired from working, I felt like doing something just part-time. And I thought at some point in time I might go back into radio. Yeah. They had an opening. I learned about an opening they had up there. Sent them an application. They're a CBS affiliate, so I'm actually working for them with CBS. They sign my paychecks.
Nice.
Yeah, and they hired me. And what it turned out, Dennis, was most of the people there are my age.
Well, that's cool.
We're all kind of, and I remember them because I followed that station. I'm from Northern Connecticut, and I followed that station my whole life. And here I am now working with people that I've been listening to for the past 45 years.
That's got to be weird.
It really is, yeah.
It's probably something in the beginning you never thought about actually being there doing that. Now here you are doing it with the very people, like you say, you were listening to.
And you
that's
know,
got to be cool.
It is cool. I had done some news, not a lot, early on in my radio career, which spanned about maybe 3.5, probably closer to 4 years. And I thought news may become my niche, but I ended up leaving the business. We were raising a family, and the money wasn't really there in that market. So I ended up doing other things. But I did a little bit of news, and I always thought if I ever got back into it, it would probably be in the news area.
So you were doing it before. Were you doing news before?
I DJ'd with a radio station is how I got in DJing. I did that for a couple of years. We were taken over by a program director that came in from New York to program our station, and he had great ideas. He was the Drake Chenault from the Drake Chenault family. We sounded great. We were a small little station competing with a pretty large station, probably 5 times larger than us power-wise. But we sounded great, and he kind of felt that the news would probably be my niche. I wasn't the great radio personality. I was a time and temperature guy, weather, intros and outros and that kind of thing. But he always felt news would probably, and he kind of steered me into news, and I did a little bit of news for him there.
Wow. So, so the job up in Hartford now. What's the letters? If you want to get it in on radio, what do we?
WTIC. They're AM, and they have an FM station, but I'm on AM 1080. It's News Talk. They go by, their logo is WTIC 1080 News Talk.
AM, yeah, I don't know many people listen to AM anymore.
They're a big.
I mean, I do because I like the news stations myself.
Yeah. But, they're a 50,000 watt AM station, which is probably the largest wattage you can get on AM. So they go all the way to Florida at night.
Now, you're retired, you get out of it, you're not doing that business, and all of a sudden you say, let me go back and try doing that again. So you're reverting back to what you were doing. And I bet a lot of people that retire do that. They try to pick up from when they were younger to see if they can do it. And not only do you end up there, you decide that you want to try a local radio station.
Absolutely. In fact, I tried the local station first. I sent resumes and tapped on the doors of a couple of local stations here to try to get my foot into the door into their news departments. And they were very receptive to me. They invited me in for tours of their stations, accepted my resumes, didn't have openings at the time. And while I was driving around one day, it was a rainy day, I was listening to this station, this college station in town at Connecticut College. And
My favorite station.
It's a great station. It's got a great sound, and I'm a sound kind of guy. If I hear something that sounds, if the audio sounds great, that excites me. So I was listening to the radio station, and the announcer on the air was saying, due to the storm, our noon to 3 DJ is not going to be able to come in. He's bailing water out of his cellar. Is there anybody that's listening that could come in? So he gave the phone number, of course, and I called him up, and I said, listen, I've done this like 40 years ago. If you really need somebody to relieve you at noontime, I can come in. And he says, are you affiliated with the station? I said, no, I'm not. And he said, well, I need somebody that's, been through the training and knows the equipment, this and that. So I said, okay, I understand. But he gave me the name of the program director and the general manager. And I followed up with a phone call to them. And probably in March, started working midnight till 3 once a week. And I did that for a couple of months. And when the summer schedule started...
Midnight to 3?
On Thursday night only. Thursday morning, midnight to 3.
At WCNI?
At WCNI, playing oldies.
I didn't even know they had anything on after midnight.
Typically, they're 6 a.m. to 12. And their openings are, they don't broadcast from 12 to 6 in the morning because they couldn't find anybody or nobody had any interest. What I did was with the WTIC, it's an overnight shift I have. So I haven't done overnights in quite a few years. So I asked the general manager at WCNI if I might do the one night a week at his station from 12 to 3, kind of transitioning to the all night, the 10:30 to 6 a.m. is what I'm actually doing. And he says, sure, it would be great. He said, I'd love to have somebody doing music after midnight. So I did that for a couple of months. And when they started the summer schedule, some of the people are taking summer vacations and traveling and things like that. So he asked me, called me up, he said, would you be interested in doing Thursday morning, 9 to 12 for the summer? So now I'm doing Thursday mornings.
Are you also doing the Hartford gig on Thursday?
No, not there.
That's good.
The only night I do that is Saturday night, Sunday morning.
Yeah, I caught you on the radio on WCNI. It seemed a little weird at first.
Yeah.
I mean, when you know somebody and you hear them for the first time on the radio, it's like, wow, okay. So what kind of music? Do you play all kinds of music on your show? Or?
No, on WCNI, it's pretty much oldies, 60s and 70s. I may sprinkle in some odd things every now and then, but it's predominantly the 60s and the 70s. The Ronettes, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, James Taylor, Eagles. The mid 60s, mid 70s, maybe some
stuff.
50s.
Good stuff. Actually, I called you when you were on and thought I could stump you.
You did call me, yeah.
But I didn't stump you.
You've got a distinctive voice.
What was the name of that band?
Oh gosh.
They had such a great song, and they had such a weirdest name for a band. I can't remember because it's just so off the wall.
It was a great song, though. It was a great song.
So you don't get phone calls at the Hartford thing. That's strictly news.
That's just news. Yeah, the only phone calls we'll get there is local PD may call and give us a tip on something, or we may get a tip from a listener.
Now is it local news up there? Or, I mean, is it world news?
Local, national, world, and regional. Yeah, just about everything.
So so you'd be on the mic for what? How long?
I'm on my first newscast on Saturday night is at midnight at 12:04. I have a 2-minute newscast on the hour and on the half hour. We have a CBS feed that does does a world and national news for 3 minutes. We have a 1-minute spot after that segment, and then I come on with a 2-minute, pretty much local news. On the half hour, it's only us, and it's maybe we've got time for the largest world or national story that's going on, and then maybe the largest local story, and then we have a tremendous weather department, and we have to provide 45 to 55 seconds, whatever they record for a weather forecast.
Now, you doing other things besides sitting there doing your news thing? I mean,
I
how do
am.
you prep for something like that?
I am. It's a pretty busy night. It's not just the 2 minutes every half hour, because everybody asks me the same question. Well, what are you doing? You know, smoking cigarettes, drinking water? What are you? And what goes on is I'm sitting at a computer between the newscasts for the 25 minutes or whatever that is, and CBS provides news bites, news sounders for us. And I have to write stories. I'm the only one in the newsroom from 10:30, from 11 o'clock until 6 a.m. And so I've got to write stories for the sound bites. They call them slugs, radio jargon. I do that. I'm looking at our news feeds. We've got local, national, Connecticut news, regional, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, all of New England, and you're picking stories, and after a while, through experience, you get to understand which stories are hot and which are really not.
And you have sole say on what stories you're going to put out there, or do you have to answer to somebody?
Well, I haven't heard anything yet, any feedback from them yet, so I guess what they're hearing me do has been appropriate for them. It seems to be satisfying them. And it's really not that difficult. I'm a news junkie anyway. I go way back. I've always started reading the newspaper. My dad said, why don't you start reading the paper? 10 years old, 8 years old. I'd read the sports and get involved with that. So I've always been a news junkie, news talk, listening to your program. I like your program every week. And talk radio is something I really listen to a lot.
As far as on WHCN, they have some great DJs on that station. And I talk about that station a lot on my shows. The variety of shows from, yours is a 3-hour slot. Most of them are 3-hour slots, right?
They are, yeah.
Okay. But you can go from something like your show, 60s, 70s, that's my music, 70s, little 80s. And the next show could be something as drastically different as polka. Or you may have a show come on, I always say this because it blew my mind the first time I heard it. You could turn it on and you may be listening to an old radio show, like the Green Hornet or something. And that really caught my attention about that station. I mean, they play some stuff that I just turn it off because it's, but the variety is for anybody out there, no matter what kind of music or what kind of shows you're into, you pretty much are going to find it on this station. You got to look for the time slot that it's on, but it's there. I mean, do they have no say? Now, I know the station is probably one of the last stations where there's not a lot of regulations. I mean, there's the FCC regulations, but I mean, as far as what they do on that station, it's you do what you're going to do. Sometimes you don't even, some of the songs people play on that station, you don't even have to worry about what they're saying in the song. I mean, all you got to do is let people know, hey, there may be something in here you may not want to hear.
Exactly.
And then they play it, which is, to me, it's like a breath of fresh air. Now, how long does it take you to get yourself set up for a show?
I spend time during the week getting set up. I'll take a few minutes, during the day and just sit down, jot down some notes. I try to add a little bit of personality. What I'm doing from 9 a.m. to noontime is I'm emulating AM radio that we used to listen to. That kind of a sound where the DJ's doing the weather, he's giving you the time, maybe telling you where the traffic is like. The computers today the technology with these social media websites, you can get all that information right off a handheld iPhone.
No, that's different because I haven't heard anybody on that station do anything along that line.
You know,
That's pretty clever.
you know, well, one of our fellow DJs who you know has a program here, I believe, had called me up and said, you know, that we haven't heard that in a long while. She says, I heard the station, I heard the weather, and I said, this can't be WCNI. But, you know, it seems to be received very well. I get some pretty good positive feedback. People seem to enjoy it. And, you know, we're a college station, but we're also a community-oriented station. And we want to provide information to the listeners. And what better way to do that? We had a couple of really severe storms during my shift, which were going to occur later in the afternoon, and I was able to bring that to the attention of the listeners. We had a couple of pretty good accidents, serious accidents, that I was able to, you know, advise people, hey, you know, if you're traveling I-395 northbound over by exits 79A, you know, be careful there. So it's a little bit of information in between all the music.
I can picture it now. Somebody's driving along the road, hearing you and going, oh, that can't be that ain't the station.
If they're
trying to find WHCN.
The station is
That's pretty
diverse.
cool.
It really is diverse, and with me doing that, it's unlike any other program there at the moment. There are a couple of oldie shows. Saturday morning, there's a guy that has a great show Saturday morning from 6 until 9 a.m. Playing oldies.
I forget his name.
Brian, I think.
That's what I wanted to ask you. Most of the DJs on WCNI, they all have their little handle for a name.
Yeah.
What is yours?
I go by Bernie O'Brien. Back in the day, back in the early 70s,
That
late
sounds
60s,
like an AM name.
you know, the fellow that came to program us, who had worked under Bill Drake, he came in and he changed some names. We let some people go to bring some people in, and he was giving these new announcers their names. Chuck Jackson was one. All these names that kind of had a hook to them.
Yeah.
Tom Kelly, you know. I mean, Bernie Lubier was fine, but Bernie Martin was, you know, had a little bit more of a hook to it, you know.
Martin.
Yeah. Now I'm using Bernie O'Brien. I think that's, from everything I remember back in the early 70s when I was doing this as a full-time job, that seemed to have a pretty good hook to me, so I kind of went with that.
So back in the day of radio, AM was like up to, I think, if I remember, right up to like the 60s maybe, mid-60s, towards the late 60s, AM was top. That was what you heard. And then I remember the first time I heard FM, and it was WPRO from New Haven. And I was saying, oh, FM, what's this all about? And all of a sudden, they played a Led Zeppelin tune. And I went, whoa! And then it seemed from that point that FM slowly started to dominate the airwaves and kind of, I don't know if maybe it's just my conclusion, but it seems like it pushed AM to the side. It like took over. I mean, do you see it that way, or do you still see AM as big?
No, I definitely, even when AM came along with their stereo signals back maybe 25 years ago, I'm not sure when that happened, maybe in the 80s. AM, I don't think it has the punch that FM. FM is just had that sound, and I guess it's because it's on a certain frequency that allows more dBs, decibels between you know, from your lows and your highs, where you're probably limited in the AM frequencies. So I think FM will probably always be the choice for the ear, you know, for the sound.
Yeah, because it seems to me now AM's become like the news talk station.
I agree with you.
And FM has become the music stations. You're also a musician.
I am.
And how long
a
you been
closet
playing?
musician.
We're all closet musicians. But that's fun.
It
It's
is.
fun. There's no pressure when you're a closet musician. So you've been playing guitar. I mean, you play what? Guitar? What else you play?
I play the keyboard, self-taught. I really should. I've never taken any lessons. I took 6 lessons in guitar. I was learning to play. I was probably about 12 years old. I was learning to play "Mary Had a Little Lamb" and "Oh Claire de la Lune," and you know, I wanted to play "Satisfaction" and "I'm a Believer," and those are the songs I wanted to play, and we weren't getting there quick enough. So after about 6 weeks, I told my mom. I said, you know, my dad. I said, I think I'm going to stop taking lessons because my friends were teaching me a lot quicker than I was learning. You
I
know.
think the style of teaching has changed too now. I don't think they go down that route. Because I remember I took lessons for about 2 weeks, and I was taking bass lessons, and I was doing this stuff that was just like making no sense. Like you, I said, I don't want to play this. You know, I want to play the Rolling Stones. I want to play Beatles. You know, so I says, well, you got to go through this first before you can get there. Do your scales. Do your scales. And I'm like, oh, jeez. And that didn't work for me.
Yeah.
But now a lot of teachers out there, they come in and say, okay, well, what do you want to learn? And they teach you the song you want to learn, which is a great idea because you're also learning the technique of how to play. But you're getting something quick. I mean, you can go home and say, you know, you may screw it up and go home and say, hey, Mom, Dad, listen to me play Satisfaction. You know, so we've gotten together before and jammed.
You had a great time.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah. And we found that vocally we matched pretty good. So someday, folks, maybe the near future, you're going to see me and Bernie on here playing some music for you. And I got to get them to get me in gear here. So what?
Yeah, we will.
What was the first song you learned to play? Besides Mary Had a Little Lamb.
The first song I think was Satisfaction because it was a 3-chord song. The second song was I'm a Believer, another 3-chord song. So the simpler the songs, the easier it was to play them for me. I learned 3 chords at a time. C, F, and G were the first chords I learned, and there were a couple of songs with those. And then as I learned those and became comfortable with the finger placements on those chords, I could branch out into songs with additional chords, 5, maybe 6 chords. We used to have a song every week in the Sunday paper with the lyrics and the chords.
Really?
And I'd cut those out every week and add those and try to learn those. And you know, as you become comfortable with the chords, the songs become a little bit more easier.
So you read a little bit then?
I can read a little bit, not a lot, but a little. Yeah, I'd really like to get back into some lessons at some point in time, maybe this fall.
I seen last Saturday they had this like yard sale type of thing downtown New London. It's in the old Jason's Furniture Building, and you know it's like a bunch of vendors and they bring stuff in. I mean, you know, some of it's yard sale stuff.
Yep.
But this one guy had this keyboard, and it was like small, but solid. And it also was playing tunes, but when you played the keyboard, you could play along with the tunes, or you could turn the tunes off and just play it. And it had a really nice piano sound. I couldn't figure out, I think it was electric. It had to be electric, because I don't know where the strings would be on this thing. And but it had settings like harpsichord. You could make it sound like strings, or you could make it sound like an organ. And I thought it was pretty cool, and so I started thinking about it. This would look good in my house.
Yeah.
But as we know, that sometimes don't go over so well.
I had sent you a couple of songs that I'd done with my computer, not my computer, my keyboard. It's a great keyboard. It's got great accompaniment, and I may have sent you a couple of things with that to give you an idea of what it sounded like. I don't know if you recall. You might have thought I was playing my guitar because it's got a great sound. It's got the tempo. It's got a synthetic drum beat to it. It's a pretty versatile keyboard. Next time we get together, I'll bring it over. Or you come on over.
Probably be easy to go over to your place and drag all the stuff out.
Yeah, definitely.
What kind of music do you like to play?
I like rock and roll. I like oldies. I'm not really into the folk thing, although I like listening to it. It's just not my thing. I'm like an oldies kind of James Taylor, some of the Beatles compositions where they sang them alone, like Paul McCartney sang Yesterday. I like that song. John Lennon sings Imagine by himself. I can sing things like that.
I like the old Beatles. When they went into probably the White Album, and then maybe even a little bit on Sgt. Pepper's, when they started to go that change, which I thought, because I was such a Beatle fanatic in the early days, and then they started making this change, and I was like, I almost want to say kind of like upset me, like who the hell's talking to them?
Yeah.
But I learned after time that some of the stuff was really good and took a lot to do it. The White Double album you get lost in that album. There was so much stuff in that album. But like I say, the early Beatles and all that early music. I went online some time back, and I was looking up the Bo Bremmels. You remember the Bo Bremmels?
Oh yeah, definitely.
And on the side of what I was watching, they brought up all these other bands from that era. So I started writing them down. So I want to eventually get them all on tape, on CD. That's how old I am, tape, right? And man, there was a lot of stuff. And a lot of this stuff I played when I was like 16 years old. We were out playing all this stuff. And I had forgotten. And I said, wow, man, I got to start learning this stuff. And then I thought of you. I said, yeah, Bernie, he'll come along with this trip. He's fine with this stuff, I'm sure. And the music back then was just, it's so different than what we got now. To me, it was, I don't know, it's like, maybe it's just because I was young there, but it seemed realer to me than a lot of the stuff I hear now. And back then, you probably realize this, that there wasn't a big difference in the kind of music you were listening to. It was all kind of in the same groove. Nowadays, what, you got stuff out there that will shock you right out of your chair.
You do. Back in the days that we're talking about, 60s and 70s, even the 50s, they referred to those songs as the 2.5, 3.5 minute story.
Yeah.
And the industry seems to have gotten away from that. And not sure, things do have a way of recycling after a while, but it's been a while since it's come back, and
Yeah,
who knows when.
I don't know of any songs that nowadays that are only a couple minutes long.
Yeah. The Beatles were a great band. They had that magical harmony. Lennon and McCartney were just, those two voices were like magic.
I belonged to this group online called the Magical Mystery Beatles, and it's people from all over the world that put stuff on there. And you see pictures, you hear music. They'll put like concert clips on.
Yeah.
And there was this one early concert clip of the Beatles. I think they were in Germany. And they had just gotten into that, wearing the same stuff. We got a call.
Sure.
Good evening, you're on TalkTalk. Hello?
Hi, Dan.
Hi.
I'm calling because you're talking music in general, I hope.
Yes.
And I want to mention that in September, they're supposed to have the Little Pink House. It was in the paper
Yeah.
that the Little Pink House is going to be a movie, the one down at Fort Trumbull. And Dan Gross, who lives in New London,
Yeah.
and has written a song called The Little Pink House, and has played it several times. And it would be wonderful if, when they do this movie on the Little Pink House, they consider his song. I don't know if you guys have heard it and listened to it, but I should think, hey, he is a New London man, about a New London incident, about a movie that may come up, and they had it in the paper yesterday, a whole big story about it. Well, what's going on? We're talking about things back in my day. Let's get with it and, consider giving Dan a break and put him on and let him sing. Anyway, it's just my thought.
Well, I agree with you. That song that Dan wrote, and I have it on CD myself, it goes with that whole story, but what happened on it, that was like the theme song for the whole incident at eminent domain and taking of the house. And you're right, that should be, if I had my way, it would be the opening song to the movie. It should be in the movie. I've heard other stuff by Dan. I've heard him do some blues. He's a big country fanatic. And Dan is very good. Dan has a unique style in his singing. I don't think he does it as much anymore. I try to encourage him to come on the show and play. I told him I'll even learn some of his songs and jam with him, but I guess he's not quite ready to do that. But you're right, that song needs to be in that movie.
Well, we could sure use something to pep us up in New London, and something that's good for New London, and and it's about us.
Yeah, it is.
How about doing something for us? Hollywood and all them, and New York and all them, heck, they've been around for years.
Well, you realize if this movie gets made, and from what I hear, it's definitely going to be made, once it hits the screen and goes national, a lot of people are going to know about New London. Unfortunately, it's not going to be a bright side story for New London, but still, I don't know what else to say about it.
Well,
I did hear, though, that Brooke Shields was supposed to play Susan Kilo in the movie. I don't know how true that is, but that's what I heard. So who do you think should play?
I just wanted to mention it. It come right to mind, and I thought maybe you'd get in touch with him, and if you thought it was worthwhile to do. And I'm going to hang up now.
All right, thank you. Dan Gross is a local man. He's also in the Lot Group, which I got to get you into one of these days. And he's got a nice little style. He used to be on the road. He did the whole country western thing on the road.
Oh, okay.
For many, many years. And sometimes we'll sit and talk about stories. And some of the bands I was in, we didn't go on the road. We went locally on the road. But there's a lot of. Have you ever been in any bands?
I've never been in a band.
No?
No. Playing with you is the closest I've come to a band.
Yeah. Oh man, I'll tell you, there's stories you could tell about being on the road or being in bands and playing out a lot. It's tough. It's a tough gig. You're up on stage for on and off for roughly 3 hours or so. Sometimes back in my day it was 4 hours. And you're doing 40-minute sets, 20 minutes off. And your song lists, I don't think anyone had a song list where you could play the whole night with just playing one song once. You ended up taking the first set and moving it to the fourth set and mixing it up. It's just crazy. But you didn't make no money. You really didn't. If you broke down what you made for that night to how long you practiced to get there, Christ, you're making $0.10 an hour. So you were lucky in a way. Not to have to go through all that. So what do you have for equipment? What do you use for equipment?
I've got a Yamaha 6-string acoustic guitar.
Which I've seen and sounds real nice.
And I've got it's a Yamaha keyboard. The model escapes me. It's a digital keyboard. But it's got a great sound. I got to get you over to listen to it, yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to have our wives go shopping or something.
And I've got an electric pickup for it, but I've never played outside the closet, so I haven't needed any electronic boost to my guitar. But I've entertained that, doing something like that.
You can learn when there's an event coming up, like something at Riverside or someplace, and all you need to learn is 6 songs, 8 songs.
I saw people downtown at the Stroll a few weeks back, and there were some guitarists playing on the corners. And
the guitar case open. That's so cool. I
Isn't
kind
that
of
cool?
wish. See, that's the trouble with playing bass. I really don't know how to play anything else, but you can't stay on the corner side playing bass. Oh, maybe nowadays you could.
Maybe the two of us could do something like that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah. So let's switch direction here for a minute. Now,
Sure.
In Hartford, you do news.
I do the news.
You're a news junkie. Do you keep up on what's going on in town?
I try to, because I live here, and I haven't offered this to the station yet, and they really haven't used me as a resource for that. Any real hot local stories in New London, Waterford, Groton, and there have been a few since I started there back in February. We're
talking about the Hartford station.
Yeah, yep. The Hartford station hasn't contacted me to cover anything down here for them. Now, whether it's a financial issue for them, I don't know. And of course, if you volunteer your time, that's okay, but you want to get compensated for it too. So that hasn't happened. But I think if there was something that was breaking, that was a real big, became a real big regional.
Breaking into London.
Well, yes, there is. Absolutely, there is. Yeah, there's some strong personalities in New London.
I always say that they should, New London should have its own reality show, and everybody could play their own parts. I think it'd be a big hit.
Yeah, I think if something were to occur over at Electric Boat or the naval shipyard, the naval base, something serious like that. That fellow that tried to drive with his car. Was it last winter? Somebody tried to get on base, trying to go through security to get on base for something.
Around here?
Yeah, over in Groton. Probably.
Oh, yeah, I kind of vaguely remember.
Yeah, it wasn't a real big story, but if something like that had exploded into something big, I could have covered that for the radio station rather than sending somebody down. I could have done something like that for them.
You had to put the bug in their ear.
Yeah, I could probably put the bug in their ear too. Yeah.
Expand.
Yeah.
So, as far as the city goes, because I wasn't sure if you were into the politics side of it or the news side of it. Have you been following like the mayor race that's starting up?
A little bit, yeah, a little bit.
So, you realize in New London, how long have you been in New London?
Been here since, I'm going to say 07, 06,
So you've been here
07.
for a while.
Yeah, full-time since 08. But we bought property here with the expectations of eventually retiring down here, probably around 06.
You think retiring in here is still a good idea?
I like the area, I really do, yeah. I didn't know if I was going to. Jean suggested we give it a shot. She went to school down here, and she went to school at Mitchell College and always loved the area. And she says, let's give it a try. And we liked the property that we looked at, and we ended up buying at that property. And, the politics, everywhere I've lived, there's been issues with politics. Every town has their skeletons. And New London's just as like anybody else. So it's interesting, it makes good talk at the water cooler in the morning. But it is what it is, I guess.
That's true. Do you think, so you've been here long enough to know that going forward for New London seems to be a tough thing to do. For what reasons, I don't know. Maybe a lot of people are just stuck in a situation where they just don't see it happening, so it doesn't happen. Or the people that are looking at it to happen just can't get the backing to make it happen. It's very easy in this town to be on the negative side because of what you see. I think it's tough for a lot of people to be on the positive side because you just don't see how that can happen, so you don't get into it. But it's nice to have the to feel like it is what it is, and you deal with it, and then you look at all the stuff around New London that has nothing to do with politics, and there's a lot. I mean, New London's a cool town. I like New London a lot. I mean, I wouldn't want to move out of here, although sometimes people get me mad enough. I think I do. But sometimes I have a short fuse. I hear something, or like the last show, Dan McSparron's show, we just started butting heads, but that's the way it is. It's not. It should not be taken real personal. Sometimes you can't help it, but.
Yeah, they say you should never really try not to personalize anything. Is what I've always been taught. It can be difficult. It really can be. Yeah.
I don't know if you're a Democrat or Republican. I don't really need to know that, but you realize in New London that if you have 1,000 registered Republican voters in this town, you're lucky. So it's very democratic, and it has been for probably almost 90 years. So you don't really get the people that run for office that you normally would. Do you follow that at all? Am I like who's running for council, who's running for mayor?
I see the names and I see the advertising signs, when they post them on the lawns and stuff around election time. I do read the Day, the local paper, and there's a lot of information in there. So I am familiar with the names.
Okay, I'm going to switch back because I don't like that. Concerts. Have you been to many concerts?
Over at the casino we have, and we've been to a couple over at, we saw Ringo Starr and the All-Star Band
That must have been great. I
last
never caught
spring.
him.
Yeah, they were, no, last fall. Yeah, they were good, and that was up at, what's the venue? It's in, off of Route 9 up in Middletown. The Toyota, they're having trouble with the sound. I guess neighbors are around that venue
the
are
racetrack?
complaining. No,
there's no
the
racetrack.
Toyota. It's the Xfinity Theater. Is that what they call it?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, the
That's
Xfinity.
Middletown?
Near Middletown.
all
Maybe not Middletown, but in that
Yeah,
area.
I think I've been to a couple of concerts up there.
Yep, yep. We were supposed to go to a concert up there
Yeah.
that I just started working at WTIC, and I wasn't able to go to because I
was
had to work that night.
The English Pink Floyd show.
English Pink Floyd,
Now
yeah.
I see they're having the Australian Pink Floyd shows coming. They were the first ones that did the copy of the Pink Floyd. And I often wondered, how can they do that at that scale?
It's amazing.
And it was because they got, actual members of Pink Floyd got behind it and said, yeah, we like what you're doing. Keep
Good.
doing it. Matter of fact, I heard a story where one of the original Pink Floyd members was having a birthday, and he had them come play at his birthday party.
No kidding.
So that's kind of cool. But I went, and the reason I was thinking, I've never been a really big Pink Floyd fan. Their music is okay, but it doesn't do much for me. But I went and saw Trans-Siberian Orchestra. The show that they put on was incredible. I'd never been to that kind of a concert with that much to see. I mean, with the lights and the stage act and all that. And it hooked me. So then I was talking to Buddy, and I said, he started telling me about the Pink Floyd shows. So I'm thinking, well, maybe I don't really care for the music, but the show's got to be incredible. Yeah, but it didn't happen. But
I've seen Lionel Richie locally, and I'd never seen him before. Paul Anka was in the area. He did a great show. I'm trying to think who else. We were going to see the Eagles here, but the tickets were just out of sight.
That's outrageous.
So we ended up going to Boston to see them, and and they were good. They were very, very good. They played for about 3.5 hours, and they were just outstanding.
No, but when you're paying over $100 for a ticket, I mean, and then that's probably not even the close-up seats.
No, you're not. We weren't close at all.
So at Foxwoods, over at the old MGM Theater, they call it Fox Theater now, which I'm telling you, it's one of the best theaters to hear a band in because it was built for the sound. And you're not going to get a better sound. Like when you hear a band over at Mohegan Sun, the sound quality to me isn't that great. I mean, because it's not really built for that.
Yeah.
But this theater, I mean, you can't beat it. And they got Deep Purple coming there. July 30th.
I've never heard a concert there, so that's interesting you
they've had a
mentioned
lot
that.
of concerts. They had a concert here recently called, the band was, I forget, something Chaos. And it had like Glenn Hughes in it from Trapeze. He also was in Deep Purple. They had 3 of the people from Guns N' Roses. They had a guitar player from ZZ Top. They had this gentleman, Steve Stevens, who's wrote most of Billy Idol's music. He was there, and they're just traveling around having a good time. All these superstars. And I didn't even know it to the day they were playing. And I was working.
Oh, no kidding.
Man, was I upset.
Do you ever write music?
No, I've never written any music. I wouldn't even know how to begin to write music, to be honest. I mean, I can pick up some riffs, but I find as a bass player, if you don't know other things, we got a call.
Sure.
Good evening, you're on Talk Talk.
Hi, this is in reference to one of your past callers. She called in about the Little Pink House song.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about these producers?
No, I really don't know much about it. All I heard was, I think it's, and don't quote me on this, but I think it's Lifetime that's bought the rights to the book and that is putting the movie together. That's the last thing I heard. And, the lady was right. I mean, I really feel that Dan Gross's song, Little Pink House, should open up the movie.
Exactly.
I mean, this is important. The song just fits the whole thing of what was happening down there.
Absolutely.
So,
What we did was we tried to get a hold of the producers, and I don't know whether they'll respond to it or not.
no, producers are funny. You
But
never know.
the songs definitely need to be in the movie if they want to make a good movie.
Yeah, I agree, because it's just as important and just as what was going on down there. It goes with the issue.
Absolutely, and I'm surprised the Day didn't mention it.
Yeah, I know. That's a good point. I'm surprised too.
Mm.
But I got to talk with Dan, and I'm still working
Yeah.
on him to get him to come on the show and play, because this might be the
Okay.
time with the 10th anniversary.
Well, you can get a hold of him sometime down the road, and you can discuss
Yeah.
it with him.
All right, what else you got for me? I haven't heard you. I haven't talked to you in a while.
Oh yeah, I heard it. I heard you and the other guy there.
Oh, Dan?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes people just get you going. You let
I
it loose,
know.
and then you get over it.
Yeah, it's time to move on. You know, you can't talk about the same thing all the time.
That's true. Sometimes it's hard, though.
I know.
All righty.
So get a hold of Dan, and we'll see what we can do.
All right.
We want these new producers to know about it. The
I'm
old
sure-
producers were interested,
I'm sure they
but
probably
the
know.
new ones, we don't know who they are.
What do you mean, old producers? Were there?
Well, they're not the same producers anymore.
Oh,
They switched to someone else for some reason. We don't know why. But the old producers, when we talked to them, you know, quite a while ago, they were interested in the songs. So hopefully
Yeah,
this new outfit will catch on. Because without those songs, there's no movie as far as I'm concerned.
well, I kind of agree. I mean, there is a story there, but it just will feel empty.
Exactly. They're missing the boat. And you know, they should get this actress, her name is Melissa Leo. She kind of resembles Suzette, and I think that it would really make a good fit.
Who do you think should play Kathleen Mitchell?
Kathy Bates.
Yeah, exactly.
Kathy Bates.
All righty.
All right. So
Thanks
get in touch.
I will. Thanks for
Okay.
calling.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, that's what I always thought. You know, you know Kathleen Mitchell? I mean, you don't know her personally, but
I
have you heard of her?
I don't.
No?
I know
Not
the
a
Kilo lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big story. We were following that pretty closely up in northern Connecticut when that was going down.
Yeah, well, it was going to affect everybody.
Sure.
You
Yep.
know,
To go all the way to the Supreme Court.
And I don't know if in your newscast and if you heard about what the governor's trying to do. I know it's a law now to where the state or federal government, for the right reason, well, their opinion of the right reason, can take up to so many feet of your property for transportation purposes or something along that line. But the governor wants to expand that to like a large area around any train station, bus station, any kind of transportation hub, to be able to come in by eminent domain and take the land if they need it. Now, that's a big issue in this state. I mean, I don't know, he's gonna have his hands full on that. What's one of the leading stories that you've heard that feels, you know, something that you really hooked onto?
Wow. There's so many of them. It's hard to really get your feet sunk into any one of them. Just in the broad sense, this story going on in New York with these two escapees,
Yeah.
that's a big story. That's hitting home for me because I was in that business for a while.
What business?
The corrections business.
Oh, you were?
Yeah. And I worked for the state for 22 years. Before
As a guard?
Yeah, as a guard.
No kidding. Huh.
And so that's been a big story. Around here, working close to Hartford, a lot of the Hartford stories are big. The baseball park that they eventually they voted to accept and build with private funding, not public funding. They shut down public funding.
Yeah,
And I thought rightfully so.
Yeah, I know. I don't think we need no baseball stadium.
Now, do I understand, New London, according to the mayor of New London, he would be receptive to having a minor league baseball
Yeah.
team in town. Did you hear that recently?
Yeah, I heard that, and then I read where the people that run that whole thing said that that's not going to happen.
Yeah, yeah.
And, in order for that to happen in this town, you're going to have to build.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been to a couple ball games in Norwich at the minor league, or I guess it's minor league up in Norwich.
But Dodd, yep.
And it's fun if you're into baseball, but I don't think it's a big money maker.
Yeah.
I mean, there's times I've read where Norwich just has to subsidize to keep the place going. So why do we want that here?
And it could be a seasonal thing. I don't know what they would, what kind of revenue they would attract, off of baseball season.
I don't think they'd attract enough to justify what we would probably have to spend. I mean, it sounds cool, hey, it's another, someone might say, oh, man, that's a great idea the mayor has, but kind of look at behind the scenes of it.
The way the budgets are right now, Dennis, you got to be careful how you spend your money right now.
You shouldn't be
really
spending
gotta
more than you got.
Exactly.
Well, we're down to a minute. I want to thank you for coming on.
I appreciate the
like
invitation.
This. It's just like I say, sitting in the living room shooting the crap. And I hope you come back on in the future. But tonight's show, folks, was just an all-around show about something to kind of take our mind off of what's going on in New London for a little while. And I hope some of the people out there that were listening tonight, if you're retired and you're doing something before then that you never really got to where you wanted to go and you let it go, but inside you never let it go. Now you're retired and you're thinking about picking it back up, but you may be nervous. This man did it. Anybody can do it. It's a little scary at first, maybe.
Can be.
You probably the first time you went on the air in Hartford, you were probably a nervous wreck.
After 40 years, it was just like getting wet all over again,
Well, we're going off, folks. Thank you for tuning in tonight, and see you next week.